The Tonight Show, March 1973. Johnny Carson has been hosting this show for 11 years, and he has learned that the best television moments are usually the ones nobody planned. Tonight, he has planned something that will either be brilliant or catastrophic, and he genuinely does not know which it will be until it happens. That uncertainty is either the sign of a great idea or a terrible one, and in about 20 minutes he will find out which. Muhammad Ali is already seated in the guest chair when the show comes back from its first commercial break. He arrived backstage in a mood that his publicist described to the production staff as focused, which is the word people use when the real word would cause problems. Ali is 31 years old and the heavyweight champion of the world, and he has been doing interviews since he was 18. And he can perform comfortable and charming in his sleep, which is what he has been doing for the first segment of tonight's show. He told 2 stories, made the audience laugh 4 times, and deflected a question about his personal life with a grace that made the deflection itself entertaining. Professional Ali. What the audience does not know yet is that something is about to happen that Ali does not know is about to happen either, and that when it does, the professional performance is going to come under significant pressure. Johnny opens the second segment with a setup that sounds casual, but is in fact very carefully constructed. "You know," he says, leaning toward Ali with the particular body language he uses when he wants the audience to feel like they are overhearing a private conversation. "There's been a lot of talk lately about different fighting styles, about how different martial arts compare to boxing, about whether techniques from other traditions could work against a trained boxer." Ali's expression shifts. Not dramatically, just a slight tightening around the eyes. He has been asked versions of this question before, and he has a prepared answer for it that is confident and dismissive and will get a good reaction from the audience. He begins loading that answer. "Well, Johnny, I think we all know that boxing is the—" Johnny interrupts him, which is something Johnny Carson almost never does to a guest. "Before you answer that," Johnny says, "I want to bring out someone who has some thoughts on the subject." He looks toward the curtain. "Ladies and gentlemen, Bruce Lee." The curtain opens, and Bruce Lee walks out, and the studio audience reacts the way studio audiences react when someone appears who they genuinely did not expect and genuinely wanted to see. Genuine surprise, genuine excitement. The kind of applause that has real energy in it rather than the polite, reflexive kind. Ali does not applaud. He sits in his chair and watches Bruce walk across the stage, and the expression on his face is doing something that the cameras catch, and that the audience notices, and that will be written about in the entertainment press tomorrow. It is not hostile exactly. It is the expression of a man who has just realized he has been set up and is deciding in real time how he feels about that. Bruce crosses the stage and extends his hand to Ali. His face is completely open, genuine warmth in it. Ali shakes the hand, briefly, correctly, the handshake of a man completing a social obligation rather than making a connection. Bruce sits in the second guest chair, which has been placed at an angle to both Ali's chair and Johnny's desk, and settles into it with the easy physical comfort of someone who is genuinely at home in his own body. "Great to have you both here," Johnny says, with the smooth pleasure of a man watching his gamble play out in the opening seconds. "I thought it would be interesting to have a conversation about fighting from 2 very different perspectives. Muhammad, you're the greatest boxer alive. Bruce, you've developed a martial arts philosophy that people are calling revolutionary. I figured, why not get you 2 in the same room?" "Why not?" Ali says. His voice is pleasant, completely pleasant. The pleasantness is its own kind of signal to anyone paying attention. Bruce looks at Ali with what appears to be genuine curiosity and says nothing yet. He is reading the room the way he reads everything, quietly and completely. "So let's start with the obvious question," Johnny says. "How do boxing and kung fu compare? Bruce, what do you think boxing does well?" Bruce answers this question the way he answers most questions, directly and with genuine thought behind it. He talks about boxing's economy of movement, about the sophistication of distance management that serious boxing develops, about footwork. He is clearly not being diplomatic. He means what he says, and he says it with the specific enthusiasm of someone talking about something they have actually studied. Ali listens to this with his arms crossed. When Bruce finishes, Ali says, "That's very nice." "That's a very nice answer." The word nice lands in a specific way. Boxing does a lot of things well. Boxing is the greatest combat sport in the history of the world. It has been tested for thousands of years against real opponents in real conditions. It has produced the greatest athletes of any generation. He pauses. Kung Fu is very beautiful to watch in movies. The audience makes an uncertain sound, not quite a laugh, not quite a gasp. The sound of people who are not sure yet whether what they just heard was a joke. Bruce's expression does not change significantly. Something in his eyes sharpens slightly, the way eyes sharpen when a person who has been watching something decides to start paying closer attention. Ali, Johnny says carefully, that's. I'm serious, Ali says, and now the pleasant surface has something more real moving underneath it. I watch movies too. I've seen the films, very impressive, very exciting to watch. But there's a difference between what works on a movie screen and what works when someone is actually trying to hit you. When someone who can actually punch is trying to hit you. He looks at Bruce. None taken, Bruce says. He says it simply, without the edge that the words could carry if someone wanted to carry an edge with them. He says it like a man making a factual statement about his own emotional state, which appears to be one of patient interest. The difference, Ali continues, and now he is speaking to the audience more than to Bruce, doing the thing he does brilliantly, which is making a whole room feel like they are his personally, is real resistance, real force. A boxer hits you with everything behind it, hundreds of pounds of force coming at you. Kung Fu, with the little hands and the special moves, that works very well against opponents who have agreed in advance about how the fight is going to go. Against who actually wants to knock you out, he shakes his head. Different story. Johnny looks at Bruce. The look says, your turn. Can I ask you something? Bruce says, looking at Ali. Ali spreads his hand in a gesture of permission. How fast do you think you are? Bruce asks. Ali looks at him for a moment. Then he smiles, and it is the real Ali smile, the one that has bent his magazine covers, the one that is simultaneously confidence and mischief. How fast do I think I am? He repeats. I am the fastest heavyweight in the history of boxing. I have been clocked. I have been measured. There is documentation. I am very fast. I've seen footage of you, Bruce says. Your speed is real. Your jab is genuine. I'm not questioning any of that. He pauses. I'm asking whether you think speed is something you can observe accurately in another person. Ali looks at him. The smile is still there, but it has become more careful. What does that mean? It means, Bruce says, that human beings are generally bad at seeing speed when it is genuinely fast. We see fast and we categorize it and we think we understand it. But there are levels of speed that the eye processes differently from how they actually occur. What we think we saw and what happened are sometimes two different things. I think I can judge fast, Ali says. I know you think that, Bruce says pleasantly. That's why I asked. The audience makes a sound that is partly appreciation and partly the collective intake of breath that happens when a conversation becomes genuinely unpredictable. Johnny is sitting back in his chair with the expression of a man watching something he hoped would happen and is now watching happen and trying not to show too much satisfaction about it. Ali uncrosses his arms. He puts both hands on his knees. He is now sitting forward, and the body language has changed completely from the relaxed confidence of a few minutes ago into something more engaged, more present. You think you're faster than Muhammad Ali, he says. I think speed is more complicated than most people understand, Bruce says. And I think that includes people who are genuinely fast. Let me tell you something, Ali says. And now the performance layer is essentially gone, and what is underneath it is the real Ali, the one who has spent his entire life being the best in the room and who responds to any suggestion that this might not be true with a very specific intensity. I have thrown my jab at Joe Frazier. I have thrown it at George Foreman. These are not slow men. These are the best heavyweight fighters of this generation. And nobody in 20 years of professional fighting has ever made me feel slow. Nobody. I believe you, Bruce says. So what are you saying? I'm saying I'd like to show you something, Bruce says. If you're willing to stand up for 30 seconds, the audience reacts to this. Ali looks at Bruce for a long moment. The look has several things in it simultaneously. The competitive instinct that has driven everything he has ever done professionally. The awareness that this is live television, and whatever happens will happen in front of millions of people. The specific pride of someone who has never backed away from anything in his life. And underneath all of that, something that might be genuine curiosity about what this small man thinks he is going to demonstrate. What kind of something, Ali asks. Stand up and face me, Bruce says. You don't have to do anything. Just stand there. I'll show you something about speed, and I'd like you to tell me honestly what you saw afterward. You want me to stand up so you can demonstrate kung fu at me, Ali says. And there is humor in it, but the humor is carrying something else underneath it. I want you to stand up so I can show you something true, Bruce says, about what speed actually is. It'll take 3 seconds. 3 seconds, Ali says. 3 seconds, Bruce confirms. Ali looks at Johnny. Johnny looks back at him with a carefully neutral expression of a host who has learned that the best thing he can do in certain moments is absolutely nothing. Ali looks at the audience. 1,200 people looking back at him with the specific expression of people who very much want to see what happens next. Ali stands up. He is 6 feet 3 inches tall and in the condition of a professional heavyweight champion, and he is physically one of the most impressive human beings in any room he has ever entered. He stands and faces Bruce, and the size difference is visible and real, and the audience registers it. Bruce stands. He is 5 feet 7 and 140 pounds, and next to Ali, he looks like a different category of person entirely, not smaller in a way that suggests vulnerability, but different in a way that is harder to categorize. They face each other. The studio is the quietest it has been all night. Okay, Bruce says, I'm going to move my hand toward your face, not a punch, just a movement. I want you to watch it and then tell me what you saw. Ali's chin goes up slightly, professional reflex. Go ahead. Bruce's hand moves. What the audience sees or thinks they see is Bruce's hand come up toward Ali's face and stop an inch away from his nose. That is what it looks like. A fast movement that stops short of contact. What Ali sees is different. What Ali sees is nothing, and then a hand an inch from his face, and no memory of the movement between those two states. Not a blurred movement, not a fast movement, the absence of a visible movement. The hand was at Bruce's side, and then the hand was in front of his face, and the space between those two moments does not exist in Ali's visual memory. Ali blinks. He looks at the hand, he looks at Bruce's face, he looks at the hand again. His expression is doing something that the cameras are very close to, and that the audience can see clearly, and that is going to be talked about for a long time afterward, because it is not expression most people have ever seen on Muhammad Ali's face. It is the expression of a man who has encountered something that his existing framework does not account for. Do it again, Ali says. His voice is completely different from how it has been for the last 10 minutes. Bruce does it again, same result. The hand is at Bruce's side, and then the hand is in front of Ali's face, and the movement between those two states is not something Ali can recall seeing. Ali steps back, just half a step automatic, his body making a decision that his conscious mind has not yet fully caught up to. He looks at Bruce with an expression that has moved entirely past the performance layer and the competitive layer and everything else into something that is just direct and real and slightly stunned. I didn't see that, Ali says. I didn't see the movement, no. How is that possible? Ali says, and the question is genuine, not rhetorical, not performative. He is actually asking because he actually does not know, and he is a man who has spent his entire career being one of the fastest people in the world, and he genuinely does not understand what just happened. Because you were watching for a punch, Bruce says. Your nervous system was calibrated to track a specific type of movement, a boxing movement, something that follows the patterns of what you've trained against for 20 years. What I did doesn't follow those patterns. Your eye is fast enough to see it, but your brain didn't know what category to put it in, so it didn't register it as movement. It registered the before and the after, not the during. Ali is quiet. He is looking at Bruce with an expression that the audience can see clearly, and that is unlike anything they have seen on his face in this interview or in any interview. It is the expression of a man receiving real information and letting it land rather than deflecting it. Sit down, Johnny says gently, mostly because the staging works better when both guests are seated and also because the moment needs a gentle transition. Ali sits, Bruce sits, the audience is completely still. What was that? Johnny asks, and his voice is quiet in a way that matches what is happening in the room. That is what speed actually is, Bruce says, not fast, true. A movement that is so consistent with its own logic that it doesn't register as a separate event. It comes from the same place as the stillness before it and the stillness after it. There's no gap for the eye to catch. Ali is looking at Bruce with his elbows on his knees and his hands loosely clasped. The aggressive confidence of 10 minutes ago is not gone exactly, but it has been replaced with something that is in some ways more Ali than the performance was. The real Ali, who underneath all the showmanship is a person who takes fighting more seriously than anything else, and who respects genuine skill when it is demonstrated to him directly. Where does that come from? Ali asks. What system is that from? It comes from 30 years of removing everything that isn't necessary, Bruce says. Every system I studied, I took from it what was true and left what was performance. What you just saw is what's left when you take everything away that isn't real. Ali is quiet for a moment. In boxing, he says slowly, we have a thing, we call it the punch you don't see. The punch that knocks you out is never the one you were watching for. It comes from an angle your eye wasn't tracking. Every great knockout punch in boxing history came from somewhere the opponent wasn't watching. He pauses. What you just showed me is something different. That's not the punch from an unexpected angle. That's the punch that doesn't register as a punch at all. Yes, Bruce says. That's a different problem, Ali says, and he says it the way fighters say things when they are genuinely thinking about a technical problem, not for the audience, just thinking out loud. A fighter can train himself to watch more angles. He can't train himself to see something his brain has decided isn't there. The audience is completely quiet. Johnny has not said anything in several minutes and is not going to, because what is happening between these two men does not need a host, and he is experienced enough to know it. You've thought about boxing, Ali says to Bruce. Not a question. I've studied everything, Bruce says. Boxing is one of the most refined striking systems in the world. What boxing has done to the jab alone, the layers of meaning in a single jab, the ways it can be a measurement tool or a timing disruption or a power punch depending on nothing visible, that is decades of real development. I have enormous respect for it. Ali looks at him. You mean that? I only say things I mean, Bruce says. Something changes in Ali's face. The last of the defensive posture, the last of the competitive armor releases. What is underneath it is just a man who loves fighting the way some people love music, who has built his entire life around it, and who has just been shown something real by someone else who has built their entire life around the same thing from a different direction. I owe you an apology, Ali says. The audience makes a sound. I came in here thinking this was going to be a situation where somebody was going to try to compare something that isn't comparable to boxing, Ali says. I've had that happen 100 times, and I respond the same way every time, which is to make clear that boxing is what it is and other things are what they are. And I said some things at the beginning of this conversation that were based on that assumption and not on actually paying attention to what was in front of me. He looks at Bruce directly. That wasn't fair. And I was wrong about the specific thing I was wrong about, which is whether what you do is real. It's real. The applause that comes from the audience is not the reflexive kind. It is the kind that comes when people watch someone do something genuinely difficult, which is publicly revise a public position, with no deflection and no qualification and no attempt to soften the admission. Bruce receives this with the same quality of attention he has brought to everything tonight. Not performing humility. Not performing anything. Just present, thank you, he says. And I want to say something back, which is that what you said about the punch you don't see is one of the most precise descriptions I have ever heard of what I've been trying to develop. You understood it immediately. That's not an accident. That's someone who has been thinking about the truth of fighting for a long time. Ali looks at him for a moment. We should have talked years ago, he says. We're talking now, Bruce says. The simplicity of this lands in the room with a weight that is disproportionate to the words, the way simple true things sometimes do when they arrive at exactly the right moment. Johnny lets the moment sit for several seconds, which is his gift, knowing when to speak and when silence is the better choice. Then he says, I want to ask both of you something, and I want honest answers. If you two actually trained together, what do you think would happen? Ali and Bruce look at each other. Something passes between them that has the quality of a private joke. The kind of thing that happens when two people who have just connected realize they are having the same thought. I think, Ali says slowly, that I would spend a lot of time in the beginning being very fast at hitting empty air. Bruce says, and I think I would spend a lot of time trying to figure out how to deal with something that hits like a truck. So basically, Johnny says, you'd both be miserable and then you'd both be better. That's what real training is, Bruce says. Time, Ali confirms. The audience laughs, and the laugh has warmth in it, the warmth of people who have been sitting with something serious for a while and are grateful for a moment of release that doesn't diminish what came before it. Johnny leans back in his chair with the expression of a man who placed a complicated bet and watched it pay off completely. I have to ask, he says, Muhammad, at the start of this conversation you were fairly certain about what Kung Fu was and wasn't, and then a 3-second demonstration changed your mind. How does that happen? How does something change that fast? Ali thinks about this honestly. Because I'm not stupid, he says, and there's humor in it but also genuine seriousness. I have been right about a lot of things in my life. I have also been wrong. The difference between someone who grows and someone who doesn't is whether you can tell the difference when the evidence changes. He pauses. I walked in here with an assumption. The assumption got tested. The assumption failed the test. You update the assumption. That's not complicated. That's just paying attention. He looks at Bruce. I spent 10 minutes tonight arguing against something I hadn't actually seen. That's a version of being blind. You see something real, you stop being blind. Simple. Bruce says, in my experience, it's not always that simple for people. For me it is, Ali says. Because the thing I care about more than being right's being good. At fighting. At understanding. At whatever it is. If being wrong about something means I get to actually understand it, that's not a loss. That's the whole point. The audience responds, and this time the applause is for something that has nothing to do with celebrity or entertainment, which is a man saying something genuinely true about how he moves through the world. Johnny says, Bruce, what about you? Has anyone ever shown you something in 3 seconds that completely changed what you thought? Bruce smiles. It is a real smile, the smile of a person remembering something specific. Many times, he says, that's how I built everything I have. Someone shows me something true, and the thing I thought before has to make room for it. He pauses. The day you stop having that experience is the day you've decided you're finished. I never want to be finished. Ali looks at him. How old are you? He asks. 32, Bruce says. Ali nods slowly, like he is filing this information somewhere. You've got a lot of years left, he says. A lot of things left to show people. The way Ali says it, the specific quality of it, makes it sound less like a compliment and more like a statement of fact. Like a man who is good at assessing things has assessed something and is reporting the result. I hope so, Bruce says. The show moves on. They talk for another 20 minutes about other things, about film and training and what both men think the future of combat sports looks like. And it is a genuinely good conversation that the audience follows closely and that Johnny steers with his usual light hand. But the center of gravity of the whole evening remains those 3 seconds, the hand at Ali's side, the hand at Ali's face, the absence of anything in between. After the show, standing backstage while the studio empties, Ali finds Bruce, and they talk for about 15 minutes. Nobody records it. A few crew members are close enough to hear fragments. What they report later is that Ali asked several technical questions about what he had seen demonstrated, specific questions, the questions of a man who has been thinking about a problem seriously and wants to understand the mechanism, and that Bruce answered all of them directly, without simplifying, treating Ali's questions with the respect they deserved. And that at the end of the conversation, Ali said something that one crew member remembered clearly enough to repeat afterward. He said, I came in here tonight thinking I knew what fighting was. I know a little more now. That's a good night. Bruce said, that's the best kind of night. They shook hands and Ali walked out into the Los Angeles night, and Bruce walked in the other direction, and that was the last time they were in the same room. 4 months later, Bruce Lee was gone, 32 years old, July 1973. Ali did not speak about that backstage conversation for a long time. When he eventually did, years later, he said it the way he said the things that mattered most to him, directly and without decoration. He said, he showed me something real in 3 seconds. Real things don't need longer than that. Either it's true or it isn't. Either you can see it or you can't. He showed me and I could see it, and that was enough. Some people need an hour to convince you of something that isn't true. 3 seconds was enough for him because 3 seconds was all the truth needed. That is the whole story. A champion who walked into a room certain about what he knew and walked out knowing something he didn't know before. A 3-second demonstration that crossed the gap between two worlds that most people assumed couldn't be crossed. Two men who took fighting seriously enough to recognize real skill when it appeared in front of them, regardless of what category it came from. And one moment, 3 seconds long, that Muhammad Ali carried with him for the rest of his life as evidence that the most important thing you can do when the evidence changes is to look at it directly and let it mean what it means.